Hello, today I'm going to talk about how to go about transferring the shares in a Hong Kong company, specifically the stamping needs, the procedure, any statutory needs, and some other items to consider. So first of all, it's important to note that paying stamp duty is required on any transfer of Hong Kong shares. What is important to note is that the issue of shares is not a stampable transaction. We've got a few clients at the moment who are looking to bring in partners, and they've come to us and said, we need to transfer these shares to this person. Can you do the stamp duty for us? And the reality is that a lot of the time it is a lot more cost effective for new shares to be issued as well, because new shares do not have stamp duty levied on them. Specific now back to stamp duty, the charge for stamp duty is 0.1% of the amount or the value for each sold and each bought note. Any other kind of transfer or document is 5 Hong Kong dollars. The IRD will actually assess the value, and they will calculate this either on the value or the face amount of the instrument itself. The penalties can be quite significant. So if you're late but within a month, it's 2 times the stamp duty. If it's between a month and 2 months, then it is 4 times the stamp. All other cases, it's 10 times the stamp duty as the penalty, which, as you can imagine, could be quite significant. In practical terms, if you approach the IRD and kind of admit not having stamped, then that can be reduced significantly, but is up to the assessors and various calculations. The stamping process is quite administrative. There is a facility now online to do this, but generally that's only available to Hong Kong residents and is not as user-friendly as one would hope. So in normal terms, you have to go to the IRD, line up, be seen, and go back probably 2 or 3 days afterwards. The standard documents needed are all of the sales documentation, so the bought and sales notes, all properly signed off. Important to note there is a lot of the templates for those documents that exist in Hong Kong are witness documents. The IRD do not require them to be witnessed. If there's an SPA, a sales purchase agreement, then you need to supply that as well. If there is not one, then you need to sign a statement that there is no SPA. If it's a new company without activities, then you need a statement that addresses that and confirms it and is signed. A company with activities, the audited accounts and recent management accounts. Recent means generally somewhere between 3 and 6 months, as frequent, as recent as possible is best there. And then in order to help them understand what the shareholding structure is and so the value, you need to provide the articles of association. I recommend a structure chart, the share register, and importantly, any returns to the company registry since the last audit, especially allocations of new shares. This is to enable them to see what percentage of the company is being transferred and what rights and value ascribes to those shares. Some important points to note. All of these documents need to be certified copies, if not the original. The group structure and the underlying accounts are needed for group situations, and all those accounts, again, needed to be recent audited or recent management accounts. In general, the IRD require an original wet signature, not an e-signature. If the transaction is carried out in Hong Kong, the deadline is 2 days. If it's outside of Hong Kong, it is 30 days. Those are actually relatively tight. What's important to note is that the clock stops ticking upon you presenting this information to the IRD. So get in there as soon as you can to start the process. Some statutory needs. The company secretary, assuming they weren't involved, may need further information to satisfy their KYC and money laundering requirements. The transfer of these shares is not reportable to the company's registry immediately, so it's not public knowledge as such. However, the transfer does need to be noted on the next annual return, and you need to make sure that all of the registers, the share register, the members, the transfer, the significant controller, etc., are all updated very, very promptly. I suggest that it's very good practice to have a director's minute, and within that you approve the transfer and all of the terms around it. Some other considerations to make. Sometimes when you issue new shares or transfer shares, there might be preemptive rights within the memo and arts or within a shareholders agreement. Have you gone through the process to waive those or satisfy them? Does the new shareholder need to sign a share holders agreement? Has control of the business changed? And what is that knock on banking, loans, key agreements, insurance, the significance controllers register? And do any service providers need updated KYC, AML, etc., especially here, potentially banks? That's it. It's quite a straightforward process, but there can be some pernickety bits in it. So as always, if you need help, please ask for it. Thank you very much.